New Zealand has denied being soft on China as Jacinda Ardern and Scott Morrison wrap up their first face-to-face meeting since the start of the pandemic. Live to Trudy McIntosh in Queenstown. Trudy, Australia keen to project this show of unity into the region.
Kieran, Scott Morrison not explicitly saying today that this is a message directly to China, but that's what this is. This show of unity here in Queenstown, this flying 24-hour visit, was trying to shore up what we've seen as a bit of a rocky footing in recent months when it comes to how both sides are handling the important relationship with China. We've seen ministers in the Ardern government critical of how Australia has handled the economic coercion that we've seen in sort of those tariffs. Australia, we know, in the diplomatic deep freeze, it's a very different case across the Tasman. Also, New Zealand refusing in several high-profile statements to join its Five Eyes partners, criticising China's actions, particularly in Hong Kong. Jacinda Ardern today, though, saying that she believes materially there isn't really a difference between the two sides when it comes to trade. She also flat-out denies that her country has been soft on China.
At no point in our discussions today did I detect any difference in our relative positions on the importance of maintaining a very strong and principled perspective on issues around trade, on issues around human rights. And you'll see that Australia and New Zealand have broadly been positioned in exactly the same place on these issues consistently. So I really push back on any suggestion that we are not taking a strong stance on these incredibly important issues.
Interesting positioning from Scott Morrison. He went out of his way a number of times today to point to the Anzac legacy between the two nations, sending a pretty clear signal that Australia and New Zealand can't be torn apart over how to handle this important China relationship. It was no accident, therefore, that this morning both leaders laid that wreath at a war memorial just outside of Queenstown. Here was Scott Morrison with a pretty blunt message about the strength of this relationship and how they can't be torn apart.
As great partners, friends, allies, indeed family, there will be those far from here who would seek to divide us, and they will not succeed because, as we've stood resolutely together for the values and principles that Australians and New Zealanders have stood for and indeed fought for, that will continue to be the case.
And Trudy, as expected, in fact, the New Zealand Prime Minister flagged that she would raise the issue of deportation. She has again, but unlikely to have any much luck with the Australian government.
Kieran, this is a traditional thorn in the side of this relationship. We know Jacinda Ardern raised this at the last Kirribilli meeting. We knew that this was going to take place again this time. Jacinda Ardern, as you say, had telegraphed that she would be doing this. This is Australia's policy of deporting New Zealand citizens who've committed serious crimes back across the Tasman, even if they've lived in Australia for most of their life. Jacinda Ardern saying today that this is essentially, in her view, deporting Australian citizens back to New Zealand. Have a look at the pretty heated back and forth.
That's not a law that applies specifically to New Zealand or any other country. It is a universal position of Australian law.
We've, of course, reiterated our ongoing view on the issue of the cancellation of citizenship, on issues of deportation. Prime Minister Morrison and I have had these exchanges before. Prime Minister Morrison's under no doubt on my views on these matters. All right, everyone, thank you so much.
And with that, this flying visit across the Tasman has wrapped up Scott Morrison, leaving from that press conference straight to the airport, Kieran. He's going to be flying back into a busy parliamentary sitting week. The next time these two will meet will be back on Australian soil. Jacinda Ardern coming across in July.
Trudy, hopefully you get to enjoy the evening in Queenstown and finish some work very soon. Appreciate the update. Thanks, Trudy.
Will do.